Yeah,
So yeah, hopefully that was fun.
that was very fun. Absolutely fun. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
Again, something that you won't see happen in I think any other role-playing game.
Yeah.
Where we can be completely and utterly motivated by our own needs,
Yeah.
our own mind, our own and go our separate ways in a way, or
Yeah.
even be at odds to some degree, and
Yeah,
it not disrupt or break the game. Right? You know, the old adage
Yeah.
in old school or D20 is never
Yeah.
split
Never
up the
split the
party, right?
party. Yeah.
Right. Well, again, we're playing in a game world completely different, and that's one of the things that I think makes Dark Age of Man
Yeah.
prime for groups that truly want players who truly want agency.
Yep.
They can only truly have agency when they are free as a character to pursue without the game system punishing them for that, right? To
Right.
some degree. And
Yeah.
ours doesn't, because
Right.
it's not combat oriented.
Yeah.
And right, you're not going to be facing dragons necessarily, or you can, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
yeah. And
Well,
so
I mean,
for
trying to
me, that's
climb a
great
rock
player
can be
agency.
really dangerous in this game. So, like,
Oh,
you
sure,
know,
of course, yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
And
So yeah,
that's
try to
something that I
avoid
don't think a
combat
lot
'cause
of
rocks will kill you.
players get to
Yeah.
experience. They
Right.
aren't going to get that opportunity with a group, and they may not want it. I mean, you know, again,
Right. Yeah.
I don't
Depends
want to
on.
make any assumptions that how people really enjoy playing, and
Sure.
because I certainly love the D20 and I love traditional fantasy, but
Yeah.
you're not going to experience this style, this kind of play in those games. You're not.
Not
And I don't
often
know if
anyway.
that's,
Yeah.
and that may not be, many people may not like
Yeah.
that, but
well,
Yeah.
I was going
it
to ask,
works. It works.
Yeah.
we were
And,
kind
and
of,
without us meta, I mean, Dell and I don't
Right.
have to stop and say, "Hey, dude, or what's
Right.
up with your character? Where are you going?" I'm
Yeah.
perceiving everything Dell shares
Yeah.
from my character's perspective,
Yeah.
and what I'm perceiving is the guy's nuts or
Yep.
something has gone amiss, and either way, I'm so.
Mhm.
And there doesn't have to be any meta conversation about that. I
Right.
mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to know. I only know what I'm seeing is
Yeah.
Janus.
Exactly.
Not interested in this, what this guy's about right now. So, and I don't have to work against him. However,
Right.
I was certainly not going to allow him to send any missives
Right.
with that bird back, not knowing what and not
Yeah.
from some political, but from
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
he might be nuts, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Who knows what he might be?
Right.
Yeah.
And so and whispering to the bird
Yeah.
on behalf of Bishop Aethelwald, the spirit of Aethelwald, trusting that maybe somehow this pigeon might
Yep.
deliver a miracle to I thought you might
Yeah.
ask for a spirit check there, and
Well,
maybe you deliver a
so
miracle to the south. But
yeah.
yeah, it
No,
doesn't matter.
the
It doesn't
the
make any
miracle.
difference. Janus does what he does,
Yeah.
whether there's any chance that it's real or
Yeah.
right.
It's funny
Yeah.
actually that you mentioned that, because I was actually thinking about sort of if Janus is going to personally experience any kind of miracle, and I was kind of basing it on how you were role playing him, and in the situations in which did you rely on, or did you acknowledge the faith and the and all that, right? Were you saying, this is beyond just me, that would be more likely to manifest in a
Sure.
miracle of some sort, or if you were like, no, I'm a man grounded on this earth, like, yeah, well, weird stuff's going on. So
Janus
that,
is definitely
yeah.
I mean, if we just look back on his motivation to be there was to find the bishop, because he had heard that he could.
Yeah.
He wanted to believe enough that he went far enough to Dredgewater to get the bishop to heal him.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's a spiritual man. It means he's a desperate man.
Yeah,
right?
but it also
very often
desperation
precedes actual faith.
Right? Well, but
so
it may not precede it as much as it is the catalyst for it, because
correct.
you have nothing else. So yeah, it is those most desperate, those most in need, that are the ones that have the strongest
I still
faith.
see Janus as a man who's not yet certain that even his, again, because he wasn't certain, he was dreaming the experience in the rocks. he when he wakes up, he feels his head's
Yeah.
not as bad. Okay, I just knocked myself.
Yeah.
But he's not certain. He's
He
still
might
not
be.
certain.
He
But
might
he
still be
does
at that
know
stupid
he
rock.
does.
Yeah.
But I definitely could see Boethus, the way
Uh-huh.
Dell represented Boethus, thinking these people were filth when they needed God. They needed
Oh
him.
yeah.
That more
Yeah.
confirmed Janus saying, "Wait a minute, I'm more spiritual than this. This guy's
I was
lost."
so surprised at, like, I did not know that we were going to have a moment where Boethus was going to decide which side of the fence he was going to be on, because it was interesting, because I was, of course, so I'll just tell you with the random seed, the very first roll, I had put on here, Bishop Aethelwald appears in the flesh. And then I also had one, the spirit of Bishop Aethelwald appears to the masses. So I was sort of deciding, I didn't want to make a decision as to, is he, I mean, it was clear that he died. We learned that he was martyred, or not, well, he was martyred, but not according to Falcone. He was an apostate, right? But regardless, he was martyred, and it seems that he may have come back from the dead and is ministering. So it was going to be either he appears in the flesh or he appears in spirit form if those roles came up, or he may not make it at all.
Right.
Yeah. So that was weird. I was trying to figure out how to, because I didn't think that was going to come up. It was a 5. Right. And so I was like, I'm not going to roll a 5 on 3d6. And then of course, first one, and I was like, oh, fascinating. So that was weird. Yeah. Yep. And then
and again, that's
the second
what
one I
makes
rolled
this
was
so much fun as a GM.
Well, yeah,
like, oh,
totally.
okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And then Northmen Raiders was the second one.
Right.
So I was like, oh geez, because I wasn't planning on having, well, I didn't have a plan, but I mean, I didn't expect there to be Northmen that far south.
You don't know what to expect. That's the beauty. Right.
So I was like, oh my God.
Right. Well, and then again, if we're playing our characters authentically and we're sticking to at least our sense of ourselves or our motivations, that's going to be impacted by both what we present, what the world presents back at us, but also what my party members are doing. Right. What Dell is pursuing and what he's doing and what I'm perceiving is also as Janus, I'm saying, wait a minute. Right.
Yeah.
And that's again what makes this again, the world is loaded with conflict. In reality, why should it not be loaded with conflict in our role-playing games?
Right.
And conflict is something as simple as disagreeing or as perceiving somebody as at odds with what you think they are. Right. So Boethus calls them filth, convinces Janus that he is not the man of God that he's been presenting himself as.
Right.
Yeah, and he obviously takes a different tact. I thought it was interesting whenever I mechanically derived on what side of the fence I stood fully, because I had been really confused with the images of Aethelwald, and I'm like, why must you torment me? Why is this? You know, so I could attribute it.
I mean, all of that is like, Janus is seeing that as and you're seeing his torment.
Hysteria. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, this is
that was so funny to me, because I was like, oh, for sure, when he perceives this guy in the flesh, that he's going to be like, oh wow, maybe brother or Bishop Aethelwald was right, and he's like, nope, I'm just nuts. Like, this is clearly the devil tormenting me, like, because you know, like, I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he's testing my faith in a way. The devil, you know, is putting me to like the thing that I fear or whatever. Whenever, you know, whenever I reacted that way, it definitely set like Jason said, we have that autonomy to be in character and follow, because normally, you know, if you want to make a neat game, you say everybody's still on task together. But what was happening with my character and in those moments, it led that, like you said, that was really interesting what you did there, and then you could go off that, you know. But just those revelations of character, and I did not expect Falcone to be in there. Last time I communicated with him,
he wasn't going to be. So what happened was, when you basically flipped the way you did, I was like, I was shocked. I totally thought you were going to go the other way. So my idea was that if they were going to meet a religious authority in Northwich, it wouldn't be Falcone. It would be, I think I had like Father Cuthbert or something. But then you did that, and then I was like, okay, so clearly this is a darker story than I thought it was going to be. And so, so to me, it just made sense that no, Falcone is still out there scheming, and now he is empowered again.
Well, and that's part of the of the role of naive narrator. This is something you can't readily teach or talk about, or even write a rule book about.
Yeah.
If we've already got a world and history, Falcone being part of that.
Yeah.
And Dell's bent is Dell shows a bent a particular way.
Right.
As a naive narrator, you say, "Oh, here's my chance to put in front of this player,
right,
this thing, Falcone,
right,
and see how that right." So you're not, you don't already know. I mean, we already know Falcone is.
Yeah, I mean, I hate Falcone, so
he's already a dastardly doer, but we don't know where Dell's going. So when Dell goes a certain way, say, "Hey, here's a chance for me to put in front of Dell."
Yep.
The leader of the dastardly doers, or the one we know that exists still in our world. That
and it's like I hate
and
that
where
guy.
does this go? Right? Where this is where the Game of Thrones thing
exactly. But
he said, "I hate that guy."
I do. I hate him. Because I got so
he's a false
invested
prophet.
in Aethelwald.
He's an evildoer, false prophet, right?
According
to y'all, to my guy in the last campaign,
According to both y'all, but to Boethius, there was a vacuum that happened whenever he left, and then all these pagans get pulled into, which he had been conditioned and trained, according to Falcone, since he was a boy, that this isn't the way. We got to bolster ourselves. They're intermixing and interbreeding, and it's weakening the Christian faith.
Right. I mean, Falcone might not be evildoer, but he would be a zealot at least.
Oh no!
Yeah.
I mean, either
he's a straight up evil bastard.
You're against me, right? Right.
Well, but it's so funny. Everybody can have their own personal points of view of this.
Yeah.
You still play it out. I thought it was
so cool. Well, I was just gonna say what's so cool about this is, oftentimes I've been in a situation where, if we were playing, say, D&D 5e or something along those lines, and I would ask the players for background characters or NPCs or whatever. Oftentimes I would get reluctance to do that because they're like, no, man, I want to play in your world. Like, it's less immersive for me if I come up with somebody. And I never understood that. And to me, I would say this system turns that on its head. That says, no, like you can actually still be highly immersed into the world. Because I would not have probably introduced Falcone, but because of Del,
what
saying
Del did, right? What Del's presenting,
and I didn't create the merchant too, but right.
You said that I overheard two guys discussing this, and one guy was like, "Oh no, we wouldn't do that," and the other guy's going, "Yeah, but I think so."
Yeah,
you created an NPC that I then could say, "Okay, the guy that I agree with his argument, I'm going to that guy."
Yeah,
as an opportunity to.
I know. I was like, "Oh shit! I need to get a name for this guy."
right. Well, and even that didn't matter at first. But
I know.
So I understand people want to play. They want to play traditionally. Everything's a mystery. They only exist in their head. They only exist in their character, and the world should come to them. And I get that because that is part of the joy and the mystery.
It's a fine way to play. Yeah,
right.
It's just not my preferred way to play. But
right, and but without NPCs and without whether the players help populate that, and there are many game mechanics, by the way, that give your character ability to take as an ability an NPC contact.
Right.
Simbaroom has this for my character Taro. I can create a contact in a place.
Oh, absolutely.
So this isn't unheard of, and that contact becomes a great chance to role play, great chance to introduce exposition. A great chance to introduce more conflict or more information. So why players would be adverse to that doesn't aid in the movement forward of the game, so to speak, right? So I mean, it's not just failing forward, yes and yes but.
Right.
It's also, we can't role play if we're not moving forward.
Right.
Because then we're just stuck stagnant discussing options, meta strategy, meta options.
Right.
So all of that stuff matters. And what's cool about, again, for Dark Age of Man, and every time I run a game or I play in a game, I'm always fascinated at how dynamic they're never, and not to say that any two role-playing games are ever the same, but in Dark Age of Man, they're just absolutely completely unpredictable without players being completely chaotic, right? And I don't mean chaotic evil. I mean chaotic in that they're completely random and chaotic in their attitudes and their expression of themselves. And we still get these remarkably dynamic sessions or moments that start to tell us who our characters really are. No matter who I'm playing when I start the game, or no matter what I'm experiencing of Janus, I'm also discovering Janus as he matures or as he is affected by the world. And so I don't know where Janus is going to, in the chronicles of Janus and Boethus. I don't know. I know where Janus started the stories of Conan. I don't know where Conan started. But only after 12 stories of Conan's chronicles do we know he's now King Conan. But we don't know how he's going to get there. Well, I don't even know how Janus is going to get where he gets for it to end, right?
Right.
If you as Bishop Ael had not committed a miracle in our first chronicles, you wouldn't have known Bishop Ael was going to become that kind of player in the world.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so it's even your own character is happily a mystery to you to some degree.
Sure.
Unless you are playing with a direct motivation that you want to become the king of Dredgewater, and you set up your character sets out the whole game. Everything you do is to try to become king of Dredgewater. You can do that too. That's amazing. You do that too. But you can't predict you're going to get there. You can never say you're going to get there. Right.
If you remember whatever you illustrated when he was standing on the rocks, and you said you described the two holes in his things. See, that to me are from his mindset. He was a false prophet because he's mimicking the Christ, but he's not Christ.
Right.
In some sense, that's the way I internalize that as the character. That's why he must torment me. It's not coming from a good place. It's coming from a sense of lie, like the devil's liar.
Well, and it's fascinating because
what
Janus
kind of got the wheels turning.
And this is what's so fascinating about it. Boethus turned out to be constantly in judgment. And Janus just the opposite. I'm not certain what I'm seeing. I'm in the here, I'm in the now, and right now it's so what's amazing is how Boethus saw that and made judgments on that. Janus just saw it and said, well, I'm not certain what the hell that's about. But
well, I'm justified to my training, to my worldview. You know what I mean? To make it make sense to me. And then I go, oh, Father Falcone, because I was keeping mum on the word until I was bubbling his name. You don't know who he is, but that just shows you the character. I'm like, everything you said has come to fruition. It was you. You know what I mean? So I was actually going to do a long play with trying to get up there, show what was going on, try to get, as I thought Falcone was still on Ireland. You know what I mean? Trying to reset him up. And I feel like everything's falling apart. Pagans are, intermixed. And it's not the pure word of the gospel out there. It's tainted. It's toxic. It's toxic, but I love what on the side. I love what Jason did when I stopped to wash my face, and get through the filth and the rabble and crawling all over me and everything. And I look up and he took the bird. I was like, I knew right when he did it. I was like, freaking perfect. Perfect. I would look
but I also I wasn't going to make assumptions. But when you described that you took you set it down and you were cleaning up, I was like, oh, now's my chance.
That's what I'm saying. What we say becomes real. What he said about that description becomes real to me. What I said becomes real to you. When we act off of each other, we prompt each other into their reactions.
I had made up my mind sitting on the outskirts and seeing this and Boethus's attitude. And when I saw the guard fall, as Janus, even though I couldn't hear much other than the miracle worker, I thought, I don't know who Boethus is. I'm not even certain he is a man of God at this point. But whatever he's carrying this pigeon for, he ain't going to be able to use it, right? So I'd already made up my mind. I'm going to make it as difficult for whoever Boethus is. And he's not going to write it.
Well, it's funny too, Del, that you said, that the signs of the stigmata or whatever were kind of what turned you against the idea of siding with Aethelwald, because what I was gonna do, so I had planned for.
Well, he's the one who fed the, fed the. And I was like,
it's funny,
putting himself
the paranoia
up as the Christ,
because what my plan was, if you had gone over to the rock with Janus when he's like, get over here, we gotta hide, there would have been carved into the rock the saying, beware of false prophets, but right. And so I didn't realize that probably would have just fueled Boethius's paranoia even more.
Correct. He would have thought what he was seeing was a false prophet.
So then it would have reinforced that, which was interesting. I wanted to bring that in because the idea is that, like, you know, it's like trying to give you this message that, you know, you got to beware of these
people see what they want to see, though.
You know. Yep.
Yeah,
and you're like, yep, I got the message. It's loud and clear. I got to trust, you know, Falcone. And I could just imagine Aethelwald being like, duh, you know.
Right.
But but then you didn't do it, right? You didn't go over to the rock. So I'm like, huh, okay. And I was like, I want to have this moment come in because I think it to sort of reinforce the idea that, like, God and miracles are working in this time. And so then with the person falling down and speaking kind of in Latin or whatever, and then and Janus being able to hear it when he can't hear. So that was that kind of thing. But yeah, it was funny because I was like, how am I gonna work that in?
To me, that's like a devil, because how could she, if she was unworthy of God, being unclean, be spouting the word of God? So she was a devil spouting Latin.
Right.
You know? Well, taunting me with what she was saying. That's how he was taking it.
Right. And this is, if I were to want to express, you know, one thing that's so important about, you know, this style of game for players. GM, for me, it is a totally different experience as naive narrator.
Right.
But because we asked the GM to be naive, because the world is, we all understand already what we agree upon as we enter the world. To have complete agency means the GM must be naive, because you can have player agency in D&D, and you're in a party with a group going to fight goblins, and the GM's going to present the world, the game as a traditional way.
Sure.
Your player agency is always limited because the GM, right, there is a certain, so what this really does is it does give the players, and I don't mean the ability to create the narrative, the ability to create the world, all the things that most people want to say. I don't want to be in charge of that. I don't want to create that. No, you're not creating it. But your player agency is fundamental part of how this works. Complete agency for Del to say, no, I'm not going to the rocks. I'm going this way.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to do my thing. And by the way, it ain't going to break the game, because this is not that kind of game.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
And we can literally do Star Wars. I now get up and I go dust myself off, say, fuck it. I'm going to go chase Yami down, and I'm going to head back towards Dredgewater, find Yami. And we're now doing screen wipes, right? We're now telling two different stories, which might cross paths again, right? We might end up crossing paths again. So that's agency. That is legitimate player agency, right?
Yeah.
You're not even thinking, I owe it to my party to stay, right? I owe it to them to not do this thing. You can be your character. You can. Now, and if the GM is indeed naive, it won't matter what direction I choose to go, because we already share the world. We already share what we know of the world. And now you're going to be rolling on that random, you're going to be rolling on that chart anyway, putting in front of us. So
and that was the most, I mean, that's what's so cool about it, right? Because, like, so the first two rolls obviously was, Bishop Aethelwald appears in the flesh, right? And then we had the Raiders, right? And then I think I did so the third one I rolled was I think it was Good News from Dredgetown. So I didn't know what that was going to be yet. And then I got Pox-Ridden Family.
Right.
So Pox-Ridden Family was how I sort of was like, oh God, what are we going to do?
Right.
Yeah. And so I thought it would be kind of cool to have that outside the city as an obstacle to get in. And then I rolled Lord Westweld's heir is born. And so then I was like, well, there's the Good News from Dredgetown.
Yeah.
At least
they actually,
in a way,
those two different seeds are actually the same seed.
Yeah, right. And so to me, I was sort of like, because at first I was going to be like, I was thinking, okay, Good News from so maybe like he solidified the Witten, right? And he's gotten most of the people on his side. And so then, and then it was like that. And I was like, yes, the sun was
and that's
born.
part of the difference. When somebody says, oh, we do this all the time in sandbox open world play, I roll tables and it comes up. No, No, you
Not
roll
really.
wandering monsters and you roll villages up, or you roll a fun event.
Yeah.
But you don't, something like that, good news from Dredgetown, that's not something you're going to put on a random chart. It's not in the wandering monster tables. And then what is that? Well, I'm naive. I honestly don't know yet what that is. Right.
Yeah. And it's so funny because it's like, in a way, it's, I could imagine that for some people that could be really intimidating to, I've talked to players before and I was like, well, why don't you try your hand at GMing? And they were like, well, because I don't feel like I have the inspiration, or I don't feel like I know how to create the story. And I'm like, well, if you've ever read a book or watched a movie, you have all the inspiration you need, but I get it, right? I get that. That's a lot of pressure.
There's a fundamental difference between.
Yeah.
I've always said there's like 3 attributes that make a GM. They like to be in charge.
Yep.
They like to entertain.
Yep.
And they are, I hate to say it, are generally the most imaginative and creative of the table.
Yes, they have to be.
They want to be a character and play a game that has a goal, right?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of people that have zero interest in creating a world or an environment.
Right.
So there really are 2 different types of players, I think.
And
I do believe tables of GMs make some of the best tables of players.
Sometimes, but it's funny what you said, right? Because you said they like to be in control. Well, that's true.
That is the truth. Absolutely the truth.
That is my biggest, like, right now, I'm like, oh my God, I can't dictate what's going to happen. I have to just go with the flow.
Oh, dude.
And it's fun, but it's like, at the same time, it's so funny how I have such, like, D&D brain is so pervasive and it's stuck in there where I'm like, I get this anxiety about, I got to plan this. I got to know what's going to, and I'm like, no, I don't, because I know that I can improv well enough.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and you said about a table with GMs, I hate those tables in like D&D because oftentimes it's, I would have done it this way, or, oh no, that's
well, yeah, you can't.
Where in this, it's so nice because what'll happen is, you guys know and have the comfort factor to just pick up that thread and run with it.
Yeah. Oh God.
Where a lot of players don't, and so like that would be challenging, I think, as the narrator.
The hardest thing to do with this style of gaming for a GM is a group of wallflowers that sit and wait for the GM to drag them through this story. Right. And there is no way, in my opinion, after being at 40 years of this, at 53 years old, knowing what I know of gaming, knowing what I've experienced, and knowing what I know of Gary Gygax, for instance, that's how Gary did it. And that's how everybody else wants to do it. And that's how everybody says it should be done. And therefore players have the luxury of kicking their feet up, looking at their phones, flipping through rule books, and waiting for their turn as the GM tells them a tale, drags them along. And that's traditional, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But very difficult to do naive narrator with 4 people who won't do anything or say anything.
Yeah. And it's wild because, but I think that at the same time, if you allow those players, if you give those players the confidence to know that you will take the creative nugget that they gave you and expand on that in a way that should be fun for them, then I think they do start to engage. It was interesting because in the one shot that I ran, I basically straight up asked, Jory was his name, right? I was like, hey man, like, will you give me this detail? Because I forgot that I wasn't playing with you guys who were like, sure, let's go. I'll give you a novel. And he was like, I mean, a little, I'll give you, but he wasn't, I don't think he was as comfortable, or maybe didn't want to provide that level of detail. And so for a minute that threw me for a loop, but what I was able to do was to he was willing to give a little bit. And that was really helpful because I think over the game, he knew that I was going to take that and use it to hopefully create a fun story. And so I think he engaged more.
Right.
But I also think
And
Dell's character was so crazy that he kind of drew the focus because he kind of needed to, just the way the narrative went, and the way that Jory was playing his character was a little bit more passive. So it was kind of nice to see it from as a character, to be able to kind of fade back a little bit and allow another player to have more than equal spotlight time, because they're creating a cool story that's fun to sit back and experience.
Yeah, and the thing that can never be in traditional role playing, and even in our game, the thing that we don't have as players, and we shouldn't have in this game. Now, there are other role playing games that will say, no, you can actually put out there a piece of the story, and we might roll dice to see if that's true. Omniscient. We're not omniscient. The players are naive. They're always naive. At every table, I would say to a player, what is naive, narrator? It's you. You're a player. You're naive. You only know what the GM's told you. Yeah. You only know what you know. I'm carrying a torch. I'm carrying this thing. I've been told there's a doorway into a dark dungeon. Yeah. But I'm completely naive about everything outside of my character and the 4 people that I'm playing with that told me that this is Bob, an elf. This is Skip, a halfling. Yeah. Well, you're not omniscient at all. You're not supposed to provide any detail outside of yourself and your actions and your feelings, which is why players get so mad when you say making assumptions about my character's attitudes, or when you say to them, well, your character's tired, or your character's wait a minute, no, that's my domain. Stay the hell out. You don't know that. Well, and it's funny because like as a GM, I do that all the time. I'm like, I don't care, but what's so cool about, obviously, you have to have the right group of players. What's cool about this system is, yes, I'm in a way sort of taking over a little bit of agency from Janus or from you, Jason, right? But what's happening is, well, maybe I didn't. But what's interesting is in a traditional sense, in a traditional RPG, that can be hard to deal with. In this system, I feel like it's really nice because what it allows is, because at the same time, I can give you, agency over a certain NPC or whatever, right? You can, if it makes sense within the story, you can give us detail on how this situation or this person would think, feel, act, whatever. So that's one of the things that I always am self-conscious about as a GM, is that I will insert myself into the thoughts of the character, because that's what I'm ultimately the most interested in. I want to know how your characters are perceiving the world. So that's why I love this system, because like, I don't care about like some grand fight against, a dragon or whatever. Like, that's fine. But what I'd rather know is, how is that affecting the characters emotionally, mentally, physically? What is that doing to them and their families and their friends? And like, that's way more interesting to me. So I have this habit of doing that. And I appreciate you guys allowing me a little bit of that. I try not to do it. And I don't think, you really haven't done that to me. Okay, well, that's good. But what I mean is, though, traditionally the omniscient is the GM. He's the omniscient. He knows everything. Yeah. The only thing he can't know is what your character thinks, feels, exactly. He can tell you what you smell, what you see, what you touch. Yeah. Right. But But in our game, we're even saying to the GM, well, you're not omniscient either. We actually all know, for the most part, the same information. The only thing we don't is the actual, we know, like the inciting incident is generally presented, but we don't actually know what else is on that sheet. So and I only know a couple of minutes ahead of you guys, because I roll it, and then I have to figure out how to. And that is something that I think is going to be very. It's not hard. It's really actually easy to do, but you really. I think it would be almost easier for players to do than GMs to do, because GMs they cannot. They're conditioned. It's hard to sit down at the table and not say, okay, I've got this thing. Right. Okay, now I'm going to entertain you cats. Here we go. Yeah. And there's the plan. And I'm going to, hopefully, the way I present it will get you all on the edge of your seat, ready to jump into the action and go.
Right.
I am responsible for motivating a table of players.
Yeah.
And making it somewhat compelling for why you would even want to be here tonight, not home with your wife watching a movie. Or so, and in Dark Age of Man, hopefully the players are already coming to the table going, man, I cannot wait to be Janice, the merchant, and get out there in this world that Sam's going to treat with an authenticity and a fairness. And so it is different. And I don't know if it's going to be easy for everybody, but it's almost easier for a player to be a GM in this first than to be a traditional GM, because they don't have to know everything.
Yeah. Del, what were you going to say?
They don't have to know everything.
Yeah. I was going to go back to what you were saying about like when you mentioned like you want to know what the thoughts are, because I think especially from the position of a presenter, to know what's driving the person internally, to see how it's like you want as much as information as you can to be able to present as efficiently as you can based off the information, the interior information of all people.
Yeah.
So sometimes you will, like when you asked me, how did I do that? Well, when you did it, it kind of took me back for a second. So I tried to answer without divulging too much, because from a player's point, I know these things are in the back of my head, but I want opportunities to express the character. So if I say in a soundbite what actually internalizes to feed you to where you can go, okay, this is what I'm gonna put in front of him. There has to be a healthy balance there. I think when you approach Jorian in that way, for some reason, like I was trying to, like, it can be said that when I said like Jorian, you can get into blood magic, or you can do that instead of just being a seer, right? But he wanted to go from that. Yeah, and I thought it was really like, Jason, if you watch that, whenever I asked Jorian a question and he has to say something predictive, like rolling the bones from a Viking, perspective of what it was imminent doom, and then but it still worked out. See, I think Sam lending all kind of extra stuff, like when we play these games, like the visions, I didn't expect anybody to have a scene where I would be envisioning Aetherwall and have to battle through that internally as a character. Right. So the stuff that you plant is not only external, but you up the ante by planning internal struggles for potentials. You know what I'm saying? For
exactly.
Like that struggle. So you do that in spades, and I'm very grateful for that. It's just that balance of saying like, now what is he thinking now? And then I want to be able to express that through play, because I'm trying to realize what he's thinking too, and weighing all this crap, And so I try to answer in a way that I don't show all my cards, but it's a balance.
It's funny because that is, I appreciate it, and it's frustrating at the same time, because to me, like, no, just tell me, like, I'm entertained. I want to know, like, you be the GM for a second, but then when you play it, like, it was sort of the first two sessions we were the first session and a half, we were like, okay, is he really with Falcone? Like, is, you played that real close. Like, you hinted at it, and I had a good idea of what was going on, but like, you never really, I don't ever think actually in character until today it was ever revealed. Obviously out of character, you mentioned it, but so that was interesting for me as the narrator, because I'm like, I'm trying to figure out the world that we're living in just as much as you are, right? And so when I'm like, oh yeah, let's get this detail, and you're like, kinda, but sort of not, and then you put your character's spin on it. It's really cool, because even if I didn't get the answer that I was looking for, I get an answer that fills in some details, and those details may not have been details I was looking for, but that's okay, because I can then take those details and as an authentic,
we're all uncovering
this is now a part of the world. So it's like with Jory when he was doing his predictive stuff, and then I would add on like a little bit more to it to kind of help take the vague and bring it more into the concrete, because you guys were experiencing real things. And so it would be difficult for you as a character to know what to do if we left it vague, if that makes sense. So but I love being able to take like put out a seed, then you guys kind of take it to the next point, and then I'm able to take it, and then we hand that ball off, and it creates this really cool.
Well, and I do think that's one of the reasons why the traditional games, and again, I'll always refer to the ones we grew up with, because they are traditional. They're everything's come since.
Yeah.
Communication. So
right.
You don't have to be such a great communicator in traditional gaming, because I'm the GM. I only tell the players what I want them to know. I only describe to the players what they need to know. Everything else is on them. Well, I want to pick the lock, or hey, I want to look for traps in the lock, whatever. But I only tell them what they need to do. I don't have to worry about it at all. And I could care less as a GM about your character's internal bullshit.
Exactly.
I could care less about the party's bullshit. I could care. It doesn't affect me. It's irrelevant to me. It's about you guys being characters trying to solve the thing. Or in our game, it does matter.
Yeah.
Because again, if you were in ad lib acting classes, for instance, and you're given the challenge of, okay, you guys are all in a waiting room, and you've all been sitting here for hours and hours and hours, and it is a waiting room of a hypnotist, and go. And there's 4 actors sitting around pretending to be people who are sitting around, right? And so we've been given the structure. That's it. That's the only structure we've been given. Who I am or who I project to the other actors, they get to ad lib and spin off that, and they don't know they're not privy to anything I don't tell them. Right. Well, gaming really is the same way. Even in our game in particular, this is a truth. And what's fascinating about this is we're all naive, to some degree. But what's fascinating about this is master communicators will succeed at playing, and I mean, when I say master communicators, how do I convey this without giving away without telling a story? And this has been the biggest problem I have with players. They want to tell you a story about their character. Dude, nobody here is here to listen to you tell me a story about your character. What's your character's name? What's his class? Let's get going. Because that's all. It doesn't mean anything. It's completely trash. Same thing. You don't really want Dell to then say, here's my goal. Here's my master plan. Because now we're not playing. We're
narrating,
discussing, and we are right. So Dell hopefully doesn't know his master plan. I mean, hopefully Dell is actually hoping to learn about his character
what it
as
is.
He plays
When I rolled that 3 mechanically, it helped me understand which way would fall. Remember when we was playing before, and then Sylvester let me know that he was pagan when I was playing Vidar, and literally I did not know how Sylvester would work on that. So I had to roll to find out how he would react. And there's moments that indeterminacy that needs to be resolved. I still use dice for that. And it came up in game when you said roll it, and it came up 3. I said, I know which side of the fence he stepped on, how this whatever in his mind triggered a certain reaction and how he's perceiving things, then he's going to go down that avenue. So you still play, but there is it's enjoyable.
But that's for you. That's not for any of us. That's not for the GM. It's not for me. It's for you. That's you making that check
except
is for you.
But except though, what's really funny about that is that, so when I ask for you to make a roll, the way I'm looking at it is that's going to inform. So if for example, I'm like, okay, this NPC might react a certain way based on your roll, or you might get this type of information based on your roll. But what I have to do is, what I found that the best thing to do anyway is to not immediately give that information, because inevitably what happens is you also take that roll. And that informs something about you. And so what you might do is you may describe something based on the role that you made that I wouldn't see or know, because I'm not in the character's headspace.
That's
But what it can then do is allow me, it might cause me to then change slightly the way that I present the information, or even what information is presented. So it's really cool that the dice rolls seem so much more impactful in terms of your character, not just do they succeed or do they fail.
They inform us. They inform us.
Exactly. The dice are able to kind of
If
give
Dale-
you
if
an
Dale is
idea of
being-
how to role
yeah.
play it. Yeah.
And if Dale is being authentic to his character and he knows the dice roll, he doesn't have to know exactly what it is you're looking for. But if he says something that he's in a way triggering through his expression of action, a dice roll, he pretty much knows what he's rolling for. And if he fails it and he's being authentic, he'll do the narration of failure for you. You don't need to do it.
Yeah.
And that's it.
So that's right.
Right. And that's also the difference about naive narrator. In D&D, we narrate everything except how you feel and what you think. We narrate everything else. So you fail a die roll in D&D, generally we would narrate even we would even narrate your failed combat, right?
Yeah.
Guys met me when I came on YouTube, and when I was playing, I would say, go ahead and narrate what that failure looks like. Go ahead and narrate what that kill shot looks like.
What?
And I was the first guy, in the wider community, that wasn't doing that. That was saying, "Oh, go ahead, feel free to narrate this." They would sit there, kind of like, "Well, go ahead and tell me what happened when I missed my roll." No, you tell me what happened. And it takes people some time to realize, wait a minute, right? I could take some responsibility for this roll.
That's why I had to start GMing, because I didn't like. You're right. A lot of players want the GM or expect the GM to tell them the result.
Yeah, they don't want to step on toes.
I chafed at that every time. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? The only way I'm going to be able to handle this is if I, for the most part, am the GM.
Yeah. Because
then I can narrate that, and I can ask those players if they want to. And if they say no, then I'll just roll with it. But
imagine, and imagine what we're doing with Dark Age of Man in our sessions or these sessions.
Yeah.
And you're describing Bishop Brother AOL, and what you're trying to do, and who you're speaking to, and what you're doing, and I'm responding, etc. And then I say, okay, you're gonna have to make a spirit check for that, right? Well, we all know what you're rolling for. We're rolling to see if you achieve the feeding of the masses.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so you make the roll. It's just a fairness for all of us to know, oh shit, Abel just committed a miracle. Go dude, tell me what that miracle looks like. Right. And I might even add to that narrative a little bit. Right. And so that's that but right. But what's cool about that again is this table environment is asking players to be as responsible for all that description as the GM is.
Yeah.
And just don't ignore that you failed the roll. Don't ignore that you when I said, okay, I got a critical success in the fight with it, you described how he took the swing, and I took that and said, okay, he kicked it on it. And then you went further with that critical and said it also knocked him on the ground and pinned him down. As a further critical evolution of the scene. And everything flows beautifully. It's like I said before, it's like we've all been doing this for 50 years, ironically.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why that is. I think some people just take to this style of gaming, right?
You know what's interesting about like you're talking about when I said it's not vanity role playing, because not only am I trying to build a worldview, but everything that I say, and when you're playing the character genuinely and you're expressing the character in that mindset, like when I said, like when I'm walking, remember that first scene whenever I kneel down to speak with the young Lord Washburn, and it's like I'm dragging my foot, and then I stand up like I've been healed, and I don't have that. Might be a little bit of an indication for character, but seeing me, I know what I'm moving, how this character is being portrayed, and if there's a little even description of body motion transfer. When I said like we're walking in the rain, and what it appeared to be like salt and pepper hair, grayed hair, is now black. That is purposely because I am describing him in my mindset. And that's why it's so like when you're listening to other people, you're not sitting there reading your phone, because there are little aspects of descriptions that it's meaningful across the board.
But that's ironic to me. The people who say that shit, vanity role playing, wait a minute. So you mean the fucking character sheet that you wrote all your shit down on and rolled all your shit up on, and all the shit you selected from the book ain't fucking vanity?
Yeah, right.
When I'm going to be a fighter, or fuck it, fuck D&D. They picked Werewolf of Apocalypse.
Yeah.
All the shit that you created, your little character, ain't all vanity bullshit anyway? Nonsense, complete nonsense. So just because I describe or narrate something live in session, which is why I'm at the table, not for a sheet of paper, not for a pencil, not for fucking dice. What I say is, by the way, as the the saying goes, is bond is same as your paper and your dice.
Right, my
and
word
your
is my
pencil.
bond. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
My word is also my bond. It
Yeah.
is not vanity. It is every continuation of the thing you think you're doing and creating.
Right.
When you're
Now,
saying
if
it,
you're
it becomes
telling
true.
me that we don't want to role play at all, everything will be dice, cards, and mechanics, then that's gaming. That's not role playing.
Right. And
I
fair
would
enough.
say vanity, then it's all fucking vanity.
Yeah.
Or it's
I don't know.
gaming.
I've never heard anybody complain about vanity role play. So
oh yeah, yeah. We've had people comment on our conversations at the campfire.
Yeah.
That's vanity gaming.
Yeah.
No, it ain't vanity gaming. I'm a character expressing myself.
Oh, because
expressing
it's
thoughts.
the idea that you're vain because you're taking the spotlight when
or just having a conversation between
like
I don't think
it's
like,
not
like when I
meaningful.
described how I caught up to Brother Boethus.
Yeah.
And he was wandering north, muttering prayers the whole way, and I caught up to him, and all I did was got beside him in stride, kept my mouth shut, and I went with him.
Yeah, that feeds me on how my reaction is going to be.
So that would be called vanity role play because
because it's pointless.
In one way that was okay.
But it's not pointless. I'm communicating to Del and to the world, to you or observers,
interesting.
that my character has a particular personality and a respect for Boethus and his prayers.
Right.
And I'm just here to make sure he gets where he's going.
Yeah.
Right.
Because he directly fed me. I knew what he was doing when he was running up and how he was approaching me, and it was going to feed how I reacted.
Far from vanity role playing. Far from vanity. I'm actually expressing something so I've said it before. It's vanity when what you say literally is meaningless.
Right.
But when I describe my character doing something, it's far from vanity. And if I'm playing with people that are listening, they're going to go, dude, Jason just told us something about his character. He just told us something about his motivations. He just told us something about what he thinks about this. And that ain't vanity. That's kind of a foreshadowing of who I am and what might fucking happen later if you aren't paying attention, right?
Yeah. That's interesting.
It's
I feel like
when
that
you just tell
is necessary in this system. I guess maybe it's just the intention of play, what kind of experience you want, right? So I guess if someone
but I do it in our
vanity,
OSR, I do it in our JOF games every time I speak as a player.
I know.
It's
I love it.
Always to inform. Yeah. Always to inform
do it too,
everybody there what I'm about. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I don't. I am very selective about the groups that I'll play with now and the system that I'll play with, because that's what I want. That's why I like this system a lot, because you can't, it's doing a disservice to everybody if you don't describe that action, right? Because in a way, this game is played a lot more in real time, so to speak, than most other games that I've played.
This should be completely real time, because you're naive. As a GM, you're completely naive. So it has to be real time. Yeah.
So it's cool because it's like you really are getting to experience a moment or several moments in the life of these characters. And I think if that's not what you want out of a role-playing session, I would suggest this is not the game to play, because while you probably could use this in a more traditional way, like you're used to, it's going to feel uncomfortable, just as trying to role play the way we would here using the more traditional system. It can be done, but it requires more effort on everybody's part.
It does.
And so, so it's like,
and that's why I say, so people who want to play old school D20, D&D, basic, whatever, and they call themselves simulationists, they like the fact that the two-handed sword won't fit in the narrow passage. They're going to abide by that. And hopefully everybody says, dude, that's cool. I mean, you can't swing a two-handed sword in here. It's 3 feet wide, and we're all reduced to pulling our daggers to fight goblins in a 3 foot wide passage. And now the reason it matters is I want to use my two-handed sword, but oh fuck, I'm caught in this 3 foot passage with goblins, and I'm having to use my dagger to fight the goblins, right? So now it matters, right? So it's not just vain, it's important.
Yeah.
And I say to those people to say, and I like simulation. Well, then the campfire is far from vanity, because we're simulating the campfire. We're simulating the conversation. We're simulating the studying of our spellbook. We're simulating the prayers as a cleric. All of this stuff is why we do it, because if a video game, it's a menu, right? We pull up the menu and we hit rest, and we hit a button and we rest for a second, right?
Yeah.
So
it
It's vanity when the GM just tells you a tale to get you to the front door of the dungeon. He didn't have to do that. He could have just put you at the front door of the dungeon. Right.
Right. Well, and that's the thing. It's like what this system, I think, allows for you to do as a player is to have the freedom to authentically react to your environment, where I think in traditional systems, typically the game master is the one that is enforcing the reaction to the environment. So the GM will say, this is a cave, it's only 3 feet tall, so therefore you can't use your sword. Where if in this system, if I'm like, there's a cave, this is 3 feet tall, then you're going to be like, oh crap, I can't use my great sword because X. But what's cool is you as the player would be able to sort of take that and either figure out a way that you can use that to your advantage, or come up with some cool and creative way of overcoming that, instead of, oh great, well now I have to roll a D4.
Well, in traditional gaming, the players are always reactive. And they only get to be proactive in these so-called moments of vanity. In our system, the players should be proactive. And the GM very much is reactive. Right? So our game in that head flips it on its head. The players should be proactive, which is why wallflowers in our game are going to have trouble. Reactive players are not going to probably enjoy this experience, and the GM is going to be going, you're asking me to be non-naive, which breaks the rules. So the players must be proactive in our game. Traditional, they're really relegated to reactive, which is why so many players they've been conditioned to a particular response. And so a guy like me would say, it's because I feel railroaded, even though I'm not in a railroading game, but as a player, you're waiting for the opportunity to act or speak in a traditional game. I become proactive in these moments that people refer to as vanity moments. Now, it's a proactive chance for me to express how I feel about this or what I'm doing or why I'm doing it. And you have to steal those moments where everybody at the table is going, dude, you didn't have to do that. We're always at the campfire, right? We're just getting rest so we can get a hit point back. Right, except I want more out of my role playing than just reactive gaming. So that's where I think the term vanity comes from. You really don't need to do it at all. No, but I want to be proactive.
I was gonna say, Sam, I got something for your birthday. If you later on text me your address, I'll send it to you. If you're good with that.
Oh yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I will.
Okay.
Yeah, it's it's so funny. So I was going to tell you. So I realized the biggest hurdle that I was having with this game after I started running it, right? Because initially I made the video on the initial hurdles that I think can become a problem. But one of the problems that I was minorly dealing with was thinking, oh my God, this is Jason's game. This is Dell's game. I have to run it the way they would run it. And of course I know intellectually, no, you don't, but it's funny because it was like, I kind of felt the same way when I was running Uncharted Worlds with the author, Sean. I was like, I'd run this game a couple of times, but I was like, oh my God, I'm running it with the dude. Like, what if he doesn't like the way I ran it? And then finally, after I think a couple of times of me, of Dell being like, dude, that was great. And Jason, you were like, that was great. And I was like, okay, so you know what? I'm just going to chill out and I'm going to say that I'm going to look at this as a framework that gives a really, gives a lot of freedom to everybody interacting with it to play the way you want to play. And, where I think for me, I like to roll dice as little as possible. And so this allows me to do that, but it also, I think, is nice because it gives you guys the freedom at the same time to say, if you think a dice roll would make sense here, you could say, hey, I think this is a situation where you could say, hey, I'm going to roll a body roll to determine, how my character reacts to this situation.
Right. Well, that's part of the agency.
Yeah.
Part of you might, like when I said Yami is going to have to make a mind check here, because I'm not going to make assumptions. Yami would just magically know I'm okay. And what would Yami in this situation? I mean, it's heightened awareness. Horns are going off. He's been ordered to go hide with the little girl. I'm not going to just ignore all that. So I'll put it in the hands of Yami's ability to process this information.
That's why it's a simple mechanic.
And that's why it also makes us players and not just role players.
Right.
I get to roll the dice and be a player going, oh shit. Okay. So how am I going to have Yami react to this now because he's failed the roll? So I'm getting to be a player, just like you get to roll and say, oh, how am I going to introduce the, how am I going to introduce the bandits to this situation? And that's what I said. I think there is much game in our role playing game, but we do it through very thick role playing. That's what's remarkable about it.
Yeah, it's wild. It's I don't know, like it's been really wild, you know, obviously like running the game for you guys and also playing alongside you.
Right.
You know, I feel like we're kindred spirits in the sense that we like to see when our characters will sometimes put our characters deep in the shit just to see what will happen. And so many players are uncomfortable doing that. Right. And that would actually be a detrimental thing to do in, say, D&D, because you're really you're not as a player not supposed to do that. Right. The GM's really kind of setting up encounters and whatever. So but what
your party will
you got a
resent
protocol to follow.
Your party's going to resent you if you get hurt or killed. And
to be fair, that's kind of fair because the system is designed that way. But what's really fun in this way is, like, you know, when you're like, yeah, I'm going to basically just completely tell the truth and it's going to result in a court case. And I'm like, oh my God. And then today when you were like, yeah, Yami's he's going to decide if he thinks I'm dead. And then you roll and you're like, oh no, he thinks I'm dead. I'm like, what? Like, oh God, no, now Yami's going to not be here. And then, but it's more fun because it's like whenever you watch a movie, a really good movie or a really good, you read a really good book or whatever. It's those moments where the characters are in a bad spot that are the and how they deal with that.
Or those moments when we're watching where they make a decision, we all go, oh shit, they made the wrong decision.
Yes, exactly.
Those are the best moments when you're when you know, when you're watching a horror film and the girl
it's like, don't run up the stairs.
And she just assumes the guy is dead behind her. He stands up behind her and everybody goes, oh, fuck, turn around.
Like, what are you doing? No, don't. You're a 19-year-old and you're blonde. You're going to die because the blondes always die in the horror movies. Don't run up the stairs when you hear the strange noise when you're in the house alone.
How about a role-playing game when you're not trying to win? You're trying to be a character. And you don't even know what winning means in our game because you're being a character. So when you play D&D, you're not going to do anything that you as the audience wouldn't do, right? In our game, I'm going to, you know, Yami, I could just say, Yami thinks I'm dead and he's going to take off. Oh, I'm going to roll the dice and be fair about this. We're going to see. But it's like watching, it's like watching Uhtred when he basically, those scenes where you're like, okay, we all know Uhtred, man, control yourself. Do not disgrace this king. Do not go into those chambers with a fucking sword in your hand. And he does. And you're like, God, what? And then we're all on our seat going, how is he going to be punished for this?
Well, you know what's so funny, though?
And how about a role-playing game that's very much like your favorite characters and your favorite...
In the books, it's so funny because he's narrating it from the perspective of the old man looking back. And it's so great because the way the author wrote it, he's like, that was so dumb. I should not have done that, but I was young or I was impetuous. And I love that he has that self-awareness, but it's like, it's so, and you don't get quite that impact in the show. It's still great because you can tell, like, he, you know, sometimes it'll be through the character of like Finan or Citrix. Finan especially, he's like, don't do that, and Uhtred's like, I'm gonna do that, and then Citrix or Finan's like,
oh you stubborn fool.
He's like, I'll stick with you, man, but like, you're making my life hard.
That is something we're definitely experiencing now. Dale and I experience this as characters in even old school games, because Dale and I play character first. We don't give a shit
Right.
about
Yeah.
the other thing. So yes, I'll do something that I will, as a rig, run and huddle down and face the Grudge Guardian in the base, because he dug up my family again.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to do what a rig would do, which is see red and go.
Right.
And I don't care that that I could not ever defeat the Grudge Guardian in that combat. I would have died, depending on dice rolls, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And oh well, that's the way this character will end, because I responded the way I think I should respond. Other people won't play that way, right?
Yeah.
And so Dell and I don't experience these problems in traditional game, because we're just going to play with. But the guys that are with us very often are like, dude, you just made it harder for our party to survive the dungeon. Well, then don't play as a winner, play as a character.
Yeah, that was one of the big things that kind of that gravitated or pulled me sort of into your sphere of influence, because I saw that happening on the games that you were running, and then obviously getting to meet Dell and see the same, same mentality there was great. But yeah, because I remember, I swear to God, I think it was like, I don't know if we were playing White Box or Basic Fantasy or whatever, and I remember I was playing a fighter, and I'm like, on one hand, I was like, oh crap, I don't want to fight this thing. Like, I don't want to do this because I could die. Like, this is scary. But at the same time, I was like, no, I'm like a fighter. I'm the person best able to accomplish this. And, it's like the idea that, like the idea of the heroic sacrifice, right? Yeah. It may not actually be heroic. It might be real dumb, but like, but what's cool is like, you can say, yes, I will stand at the door and try to fight these guys off until you guys get out.
Right.
And then later when I die, because they are like, yep, we're going to get out, and they run away like cowards and don't stand with me. Then they get to the thing that they can't open, they can't bend the bars because
they don't have the mechanical device to bend the bars. Right.
Sucks to be you, but like, and then they're like, dude, you right. And I'm like, no, I played the authentic character the way I envisioned him. And it's
and I think hopefully everybody does. I mean, even Dell read in Mincer Moldve recently in our podcast, he read Gary's description that you should keep yourself separate from your character, and what your character does is what your character does, not what you do. And that should impart 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whenever that book was produced, 81, that you are supposed to play a character, and that character is going to do things that aren't about winning the game. They're about what a character would do. But people play it to win the game. They'll admit you can't win role playing, but that's ironic because they're playing to not die. They're playing to win. You can
win D&D. I don't care what anyone says.
But
if you complete the module and you don't die,
to win role playing it, right? I mean, every book says you don't play role playing to win. Yeah. Well, how come nobody reads that? They read that paragraph in every book they buy. Every OSR has that paragraph. You don't play role playing games to win, but then they all set out to win.
I sure as shit play Basic Fantasy to win. Like when I was in that cave and I was like, I don't want to go fight that thing. And then I think Ivan might have been playing with us, and he was his wizard, and he went off and did something. And like, I was like, man, we didn't win, kind of. But
no, Ivan ended up segregated on the other side of the mountain. He put up a magic barrier that you guys could get through, and then he ended up separate on the other side of the mountains from all of you guys.
Right.
That was and that was the night. That was the game where I said, okay, I'm going to run it in the dark, no visuals.
Yep.
And I said, if you speak as players, I will treat it as you guys speaking out loud as characters in the echoing. I said I will treat everything live, and that was an amazing game.
That was so
and
fun.
Donnie was amazing in that game. Yep. We had a full house. So I think we had 6 players in that.
We might have. Yeah, that was great. That was a really fun game.
A lot of people. And what was great about it was I treated everything live. So Sam said to me, can I see across that cavern? That was basically your character out loud saying, what's across that cavern? And I would treat that as if, be aware, if you don't say I'm whispering to the guys.
Yeah, right.
What's on the other side of that cavern? It's gonna echo and tell every monster in the cavern that there's people here, right? Sure. And it was great fun. It was a great session. And it was amazing how Ivan ended up surviving in that
Yeah.
But he segregated himself so he couldn't get back.
Yeah.
So it was ironic because
Yeah.
basically there was no world on the other side of the mountains. His character was
Sure.
just lost to a world that we don't know about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but that was a great session. That was a great session. And I wish I had lost all of that on that channel. I had 30 sessions of Basic Fantasy on that channel.
Oh yeah.
Ran that for almost half a year. Amazing.
Yeah. That was yeah.
Yeah, Esbalon. Great stuff. But anyway, no, it's been a pleasure, and I've enjoyed gaming and of all kinds. And I still, though, crave 90% of the time I crave D&D. I crave running OSR, traditional D20. Basic Fantasy was my baby. Yeah. And I still crave that because there is a structure to that style of game that allows for because of a particular structure in the game. And it's like music. There are rules to music. There's rules to paint and art. There's rules to communication, literature.
Yep.
That we all agree exist. There's structure there. And where magic comes is when we stay within that structure, but then amazing stuff happens. Like jamming in a band with musicians. We all know how to play. We all have to play right within the rules of music, but then all of a sudden something amazing comes out of that jam session, like jazz. Is another fine example of everybody knows the rules of music, but they riff on their solo. And something amazing, something transcendental happens. So I think certain structures allow for a certain level of gaming to be, I don't even know the right vocabulary to express this.
It allows
that I still crave to some degree. And that for that to exist, there has to be an omniscient GM who is putting in front of us a challenge, and he doesn't give a rat's ass whether you succeed. He doesn't give a rat's ass whether you survive. He doesn't give a rat's ass whether you know. And there's something about that is paramount to the old D&D, the old way, right? You don't have a preference for the player. You don't have a preference for a particular individual. The GM presents this thing as a structured game and says, "Good luck."
Yeah,
you know,
I can't do that. That's why I have a really hard time with that, because that's why I like this so much, because I get invested in the characters. Usually other people's characters. Like if I'm playing, I wasn't as involved.
I
loved
Arig wants Trotter dead. I mean, Arig really would like to just kill Trotter and Joff, right? He hates Trotter. So Dell has somehow made me despise Trotter as Arig, which has been amazing because he hasn't tried to. Dell hasn't tried to.
Yeah.
And that's what's so amazing about characters. It's like, dude, I really dislike Trotter.
Well, and it's like what happened to me with Falcone. Like I got this hate for that guy that has transcended the game, and I feel weird about that. But and then when Dell's character today was cozying all up to him, and I was like,
"It's sickening."
I'm like, let's see, maybe a lightning bolt's gonna just like light this whole place on fire.
Right.
But that's what it makes you care about these characters. You know that development.
And that flip where that was like, as soon as you did that, and I was like, crap, I have to put what's his name in there now, because that would be so perfect.
It makes complete sense.
And so
and again, like I said about investigative games, we don't have to know the actual truth. The player will imagine it. So I immediately, when I heard Falcone was there, I went, he fucking killed Bishop Aelweld. You didn't have to tell us. I already believe that. And I could have been completely wrong, but when I heard it as a player, I was like, that motherfucker killed Bishop Aethelwald. That's what's going on here, right?
Right. And but
you didn't have to make it real by saying it, right? You could have left it vague. We don't know what he's. Yeah, right.
All I knew was that Aethelwald was dead somehow.
Yeah.
And then when I rolled, he came back in the flesh. I'm like, yep. So we're gonna have a Jesus moment here. Yeah. Which was cool, because then I can just, further.
And Dell was doubting Thomas.
My
stuck his finger in his hole in his.
It was and then oh my god, and then when you were I want to get to repute in a minute here, but when you were like, yeah, I'm going to stab the guard, I was like, oh, you're going to do what? Oh, and by the way, the priestly figure that was up on the wall, that was Falcone looking down. That the reason that
really?
you were able to get in as easily as you did was because he basically was like let this guy in. Yeah, because this is my guy. If he had been like some foreign priest, nope, I've seen what happens when the foreign priest comes in. No, but he didn't do that. But it was
and I took a seat
wild.
thinking I'm going to wait and see whether he gets in. I thought he would be turned away, and I was going to say it's going to be curious to see what Brother Boethus does when he's turned away at the gates. And if he gets in, I said, then I'll know maybe I can get in.
Right. But it's like the role playing that Dell had in conjunction with the actual role and him stabbing, and then he was like, look, this guy he's a non-believer, blah, 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 right? Look, he's being punished. And it was like, oh, and so the other guards were like, I don't know if that's true, but I don't want to take a chance.
And it makes complete sense.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm. I mean, they're superstitious. This is a time of superstition and ignorance.
Oh yeah. Well, I was
to see
really
somebody drop dead when when a priest says, if you do not allow me in, somebody's going to die, and then the guy dies. They're going to let you in.
Like, ooh. Yeah, and then of course I got to resurrect him, which was cool. But oh my God, one of my roles on here was the Blood Witch is revealed, because remember the girl was talking about a witch. That would have been fun. I don't know. I had kind of an inkling to make it Yakra, but so she wouldn't actually be a blood witch, but whatever.
Right.
But I don't know if I'll do that or not. But do you guys want to earn some repute?
Yeah. Sure.
Cool. So what I had for this was one of them, discover the true fate of Bishop Aethelwald. We did.
Yeah.
He's dead.
Yeah.
Well, or he was dead.
Yeah.
Something. Discover facts about the Dane raids into Ireland and if King Osbert has had any hand in that. We did actually be through, I think, the merchant and through Falcone. I think basically they were like, he didn't have anything to do with that. His son might be a little shady, but basically he was prepared to send troops in aid of his daughter in the north.
Right.
So I think you could earn repute for that.
Okay.
Do you think that Jason and the other one about Aethelwald did you hear that too, Jason? I mean, as far as the characters immediately.
I heard about it through the merchant, the conversation between the merchant and that.
Yeah. Right. But that's what I mean. I think it would just warrant me having one point as far as like.
I don't know if we would earn multiple repute. We just needed to achieve one of those things to get repute.
Oh, do you only earn one repute? So
unless unless
okay.
Yeah.
So
unless,
then yes.
Right. So you can earn multiple repute. You can only earn repute. So those are just multiple ways somebody can earn repute, but you don't get 3
I got
repute.
You.
Now,
I was going to give you 2 because for role playing, but yeah.
Yeah, the other way you can earn repute is through doing a remarkable event in front of witnesses. Like when you fed the masses. That was a miracle. People saw it, witnessed it. You got a repute for that. That was separate from the other ways. So for instance, if I had done something amazing, you could have given me repute on the spot. Dude, that was wow. If not, something we generally have to achieve in session gets us at least 1. Okay. If we do, we don't have to. And
I think you definitely earned repute then for this session. Another one I had was discover if Northwich is supporting instability and insurrection in Dredgewater. The answer is yes. Through that slimy bastard Falcone.
So now I'm going to spin that repute to put my body at 0. So I'm no longer sickly and fatigued.
Yeah.
And we could actually narrate that by saying that I was healed completely in my meeting with.
And so keep this in mind. I was gonna give that one to you without having to spend a repute because I believe the narrative supported that. But if you wish to spend the repute on that, you can. But I was comfortable with the idea that you would go back up to at least body 0 without having to mechanically account for that.
Well, that makes sense if indeed
yeah.
that's what you were doing.
Yeah. That's what I was
then
doing.
I'll put the repute, then I'll put it on spirit, because this was a spiritually enlightening session for Janus. There was a lot of things that opened his eyes up to God. So I'm going to put it on his spirit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because he's not yet a complete devout believer, but he has now witnessed enough that he's actually thinking more Christian. He thinks he's thinking more Christian than even Dell's character, because Dell's character said these people are filth, and my character's like, wait a minute, dude, these are your people, right? So I think it would show up in my spirit. So I'm gonna put it. Now, I don't think Yami earned anything personally.
No,
I mean, Yami didn't learn anything. Yami wasn't around.
I think Yami was really just kind of the henchman. Now, I don't know. It's hard, right? Because Yami, and we didn't really have an opportunity for Yami to think about all of the implications of all of this yet, which may happen in the next session. We'll see.
Right.
But yeah, because I was like, I want to convert Yami. I want to do it.
Yeah.
And then, but then I'm like, I can't just do it. So I gotta see how that plays out. Right. And Yami will be like, Allah be praised. I'm like, no. But yeah, so that was highly enjoyable, and I appreciate it very much.
It was great. It was fantastic as usual. Yes.
Yeah, I added mine to prestige since he's actually around Falcone now, and he's part of that diocese.
And I think having that writ or whatever it might be, the appointment from a bishop.
Exactly.
That would make sense for sure.
That might even go hand in hand with a title change. You're no longer brother.
Right, you would now be bishop or father.
You might be something else.
And you might have to get an upgrade in your gear. Of course, I don't.
Clothes, right?
The problem will be that what happens when you go back to Dredgewater, and
it remains to be seen.
You have a willing audience there to help you, or will you have hostile?
I'm coming back with the authority of the church.
Well, maybe. That'll be super fun. I think probably what I'm gonna do for our next session will be have us either return or close to return, because we'll have to deal with the unfortunate situation of Janus's banning. But that'll give me some fun times figuring out what
so now this is where it gets difficult, right? Because Janus is headed south with the merchant, southeast with the merchant. Yami is crossing east to get away from Dredgewater, and of course Boethus will be returning to Dredgewater. So how, if we are and somehow all of our stories cross, how do we get back together? If not, the Chronicles, we all have our own stories, right?
Right.
Again, like Star Wars, Han Solo's story is intertwined, but in many ways, Han Solo's story is separate from everybody else's, as is Princess Leia. Yet they're at times they cross each other's paths and they're intertwined, and other times Luke is pursuing his own things, right? And this is where most role playing, you don't get to do that. You really don't. You really don't get to see. That doesn't mean Janus and Boethus wouldn't be thrown back together again in somehow, some way. But now, how do you do that as a naive narrator? And that would be the fascinating challenge when you're naive.
Well, and it would be interesting too, I think, because I don't know. It's interesting. I feel like at least maybe Boethus, and maybe not, but one of these characters' arcs, I believe, is starting to come to a point that there will be some sort of resolution, right? And I'm wondering how that'll play out. So, for example, if Boethus goes back to Dredgewater, and let's say he's not accepted as the bishop, right? So there could be a number of, we could play out sessions where he is experiencing that, right? Or perhaps Dell says, you know what? let's have this thing happen to Boethius. Either he gets, he dies, he gets exiled, whatever happens to him, and I shift to a different character, right? Maybe that's how we do it. Or,
well, and all of that,
Janus is going to now be somebody else, or Yami or whatever. Yeah,
and all of that, honestly, Sam, should be left to prestige roll when he arrives in. You don't want to pre-decide, again, naive.
Oh, 100%.
He would have to make a prestige roll to see how brother, or to see how Lord Washburn accepts him.
I think also heavily informed by the role play, because of course, to me, like, it's funny. And so this is where I was talking about it before, right? Where I was like, okay, Jason would probably do it where the prestige roll holds a lot of weight, where what I might do is the role play holds more weight, but the prestige roll will influence that.
Well, so the role play for me, how would I do it? The role play will adjust the difficulty.
Right.
So if Boethus comes back a pompous, arrogant, asshole, the difficulty among young Lord Washburn might go up, but he would get his bonus prestige check. Check. If he comes back and he presents a case, if he even needs to, by the way,
we'll see, because
a base luck check might be decide whether he even needs to make an argument to why he's back,
right.
Because do they even know he helped me escape? If they don't, why wouldn't he just come back?
Yeah, but the game's flexible enough. We could have picked up and like he could play Yami and I could play the girl, and it would
exactly.
Well, I figure what's going to happen is Janus wanted to be healed,
and he's healed.
So he wants to return to London and be a merchant. Janus could ultimately vanish from the game, and I could play Yami with the girl now.
Yeah,
but I like Janus,
or whatever.
I'm not going to remove Janus from playing because I'm enjoying Janus. So, but my point is, Janus has actually achieved his actual character goal, which was to be healed.
Well, and listen, like, I'm sorry, but you can't just like cruise on to London all happy with nothing happening, because that ain't the world we live in.
That's right. It is the Dark Ages.
Yeah, there could be some ships with some dragon heads that also want to go to London.
Yeah. So but Dell is right. He could pick up Henry. He could become Henry, right?
Yeah. So and so it was. So I'll have to go here soon because our time is running out. But I wanted to say it's really funny because I really thought that the trajectory of this story was going to be that Northwich was yet again going to be in conflict. But now I don't think it is, because I think what's going to happen is Northwich is going to have a bit of a conflict between the king and the prince. And that might be fun to play out. And then and if you haven't already, Jason, I would check out the one shot that we did, because
but
it does reveal.
I can't find it. It's not on your channel. I didn't find it on your channel.
It should be under the live tab. If you go, well, I'll take a look.
You may have to send me a link, because I went to your channel to see it and I couldn't find it.
Weird. Let me see. But it reveals some things about what's going on in the north. And it also decides the fate of the Justicar at the hands of Dell being creative and brutal.
Okay. Fascinating.
Is it? Oh, did I not put it on the channel? Yeah, it's on here, isn't it?
I might have it set to private or something.
Okay, because I didn't find it when I.
Oh, it may not be. All right. Well, I'll make sure to get it. I thought it was under.
You might have to get a manage and change the privacy setting or something.
Yeah, maybe I didn't put it full on yet. Anyway, it's titled Blood Eagle for a reason.
Bloody what?
Blood Eagle.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Because but what's interesting, here it is. I'll make it. Oh, it is unlisted. Publish, and
sweet. Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah. Oh, that's weird. I thought well, anyway, I'll put the link in here, but it kind of hints at and speaks to the politics of the region in Ireland, and so it might be a fun thing to explore if we want to, kind of the northern campaign or the Northern Chronicle, right? And see
Love it.
how the
Love it.
yeah. So we'll see how it goes, but yeah, check that out. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, we'll do.
Sweet. Awesome. All right. Well, I do have to wrap it up, but thank you guys again. I love
thank you,
running
sir.
this game for you. So
yeah, and I look forward to the next one. And I like Saturdays for this. Saturdays are great.
Yeah,
I would be willing to try a Friday night or something if David wanted to join us, but we'd have to work it out with David's schedule.
Yeah. I'm somewhat flexible, but I mean, I'm comfortable with this time. So, and if it's just going to be the three of us, I'm cool with that. So, you know, we can figure it out, but yeah, I'm good.
Fantastic, guys.